Hey guys, this is FrayedHeroTCG, and I'm here to present my deck profile for my Beast Deity Anti-Legion deck. I know this is actually a little bit different format from what myself and All in the Vanguard does, but I figured doing this digitally might help people that are new to Vanguard and don't know all the cards. So I'm going to have the card on the left, as well as the name of the card, the quantity in my deck, and what the card does on the right hand screen. So if you guys have any questions or suggestions about this format or even the deck, more than welcome to leave a comment in the sections below here. Also, keep in mind this deck is not the final build. It's very close to the final build. Things that I might change up are the triggers. That's not definite. Some of the quantities of cards also might change, more than likely not though. But yeah, just keep that in mind. So at the time of this recording, Legion's about to come out. Limber Break is about to not hit the door, but it's about to get a lot less popular. Not by a lot, but you will definitely see a lot more Legion decks than probably Limber Break decks pretty soon here. Just because Legion's a lot quicker than Limber Break, also not as restrictive. You only need 4 cards in your discard as compared to 4 cards in your damage. Also, sorry, on a side note as well, this deck was originally built by one of my friends, so big thanks to him. This deck that I have here is a little bit different from the one he has, just because the way he builds decks is really quite different from how normal people or myself build decks or play Vanguard. So why did I choose Beast Deity to be the anti-Legion deck? Well, Beast Deity on turn 1 and turn 2 and even sometimes turn 3 can be very deadly just because the amount of pressure that they can push through and just how in general their grade 1s and grade 2s are very effective. Also, the focus of this deck is also going to be not riding into grade 3 and stopping your opponent from being able to perform Legion, making their Vanguards a base 11k. So pretty much the focus of the deck, again, not riding the grade 3, have your opponent's grade 3 be just only 11k, not doing anything, and just in general disrupting your opponent. I'll go over more of the cards and the focus as well as the deck throughout the video here as I'm explaining some of the cards. But if you're only interested in the deck itself and what cards are in it, then I'll have a written deck profile in the description below, so you can check that out. As well as if you skip to the very end of the video, I'll have a positive, negatives, and the cost of this deck, if you don't want to hear me ramble on for a while about cards. So yeah, we'll just start off with the grade 0s. Alright, so for the grade 0s, we're going to have a total of 20 of them. That's including triggers. For starting Vanguard, I'm using Beast Deity Right-Horn. He's the best, probably starting Vanguard Beast Deity that this deck can have. The best place to put him after riding into grade 1 is going to be in the back row behind one of the rear guards. He does absolutely nothing in this deck behind Vanguard besides being a 5k booster, which is not that great considering you're going to be riding into a grade 2, 9k, sometimes even 10k Vanguard. So Right-Horn needs to have a rear guard in front of him just because of his ability to restand when the unit in front of him stands as well. Just keep in mind, just in case, Right-Horn does need a Beast Deity in front of him, but the deck runs very little non-Beast Deity cards, so you're never going to have to concern about that unless it's a very rare case. As for triggers, I'm running Rainbow lineup, so 4 heals, 4 draws, 4 stands, and 4 crits. These cards are the Beast Deity triggers, and I'm running Rainbow triggers just because the deck needs to apply pressure with those stands and crits, but also needs to survive long enough into the late game to outlive pretty much your opponent, which the heals and draws help you out with. Also, kind of strange, the 3 last grade 0s that we have in the deck are 3 Cat Butlers. Now, Cat Butlers is at their strongest when they're played on turn 1, turn 2, pretty much before your opponent gets to grade 3, during your big pressure, not final push, but very close to end gaming sort of pushes. Just because he restands if your Vanguard doesn't hit, has to be a grade 2 Vanguard, but again, since you're not riding into grade 3, you're going to be on grade 2 for a while, so anytime you get a Cat Butler, you put it on the field, and your opponent has to make a choice of whether not to have your Vanguard hit or to hit, so either way, most of the times it's going to be a fairly difficult choice. So now onto the grade 1s. There's a total of 16 of them, 2 higher than a normal deck normally has. The reason for that is because we have a lot more room because of the fact that we don't run as many grade 3s as a normal deck. Starting off, we have 2 Solar Falcons, the Perfect Guards in the deck. There's only 2 of them just because the deck focuses a lot more on being able to replace rear guards than guarding a lot more. Your opponent's not going to be attacking for very high numbers most of the time. Usually 15k shield is enough for 2 trigger pass, sometimes even no pass. So 4 Perfect Guards isn't entirely necessary in this deck. Also it may seem a little bit weird, but this deck also runs 2 of the Hilarity Destroyers. His skill is almost certainly never going to activate, but he's in there just because he's a Beast Deity, and he's pretty much the last good Beast Deity grade 1 that we need to fill in the deck because of the extra room that we have. Also in the deck, there's 4 Beast Deity Desert Gators. This 10k attacker is very strong by itself in the early game, but in the later game he does need a booster. He can also very easily replace grade 2 attackers if there are none left in your hand. Also, the only bad spot for this guy is when you have to put him in front of Riot-Horn, the starting Vanguard, in the later game, unless your opponent is a 10k Vanguard. So moving on, we also have 4 Beast Deity Max Beats. His ability to stand other units when he stands, just like Riot-Horn, but with a counterblast, pretty strong. Multiple standers, multiple chances to pressure your opponent, assuming you still hit them and everything. On a side note too, this deck does use counterblast. Most of the times it's not too much of a problem, but it does use counterblast. Just keep that in mind if you play the deck. Kind of manage your counterblast okay well. For the last of the grade 1s, there's also 4 Beast Deity Blank Marshes. Usually you want to put them behind Vanguard. This is why this deck pressures very well. If your opponent lets the attack hit that this thing is boosting, you counterblast 1, put him into Soul, stand another of your rear guards. Early game, very impressive. Usually your opponent does want to guard that, just so then you don't get to stand another unit. Also, pretty much all of the grade 1s here, except for the 2 Perfect Guards, are all 7Ks, all make fantastic columns. Assuming your opponent's not cross-ridden, which this deck does have a problem with, but more than likely won't be too much of a problem. Now onto the grade 2s. There's a total of 13 of them, 2 more than a normal deck normally has. And we'll start off with the main card in this entire deck, Beast Deity Brainy Papio. This card is a beast. His skill can either activate on Rearguard or Vanguard, but most effective on Vanguard. So when his attack hits Vanguard, for Counterblast 1, he can stand a Rearguard. So he's like Blank Marsh, but better since you don't have to put him in Soul. And the ideal setup normally is to have Brainy Papio on your Vanguard. So then if you pair this up with a Cat Butler, your opponent has to either guard and let Cat Butler activate, or no guard and let Brainy Papio activate. Altogether, Brainy Papio just doesn't make really good decisions most of the time for your opponent. There's also 4 Beast Deity Golden Anglets in the deck. His ability is okay at best, probably the worst of the grade 2s, but he gets the job done. Beast Deity, first of all, also has a base power of 9k, with the chance of having power be a bit more if he restands while he's on rearguard. Usually not the unit you want to ride, but also not the one you want to be avoiding either calling or riding, essentially. Another main part of this deck is the 4 Beast Deity Hatred Chaoses that we have. This 12k attacker helps the starting Vanguard by making 17k columns with them. He can also make 19k columns when he's boosted by a 7k booster, which is pretty much going to be any of the grade 1s besides the, again, Perfect Guard, which is fantastic to make if your opponent is a 9k or below Vanguard. Not much else to say really about this guy. It's just a fantastic card altogether. I love him. The last grade 2 that we have in the deck here is a single copy of Beast Deity Damned Leo. He's a vanilla 10k grade 2. Not really much else to say besides that. He's in the deck mainly because of the fact that there's no other good Beast Deity grade 2s besides him. Again, super basic. If anything, you might want to take one more of him, replace Golden Anglet, just because Golden Anglet does do things, but Damn Leo might be a bit better. It's a little bit surprising, but there actually is a grade 3 in this deck, just one copy of Strongest Beast Deity Ethics Buster Extreme. He's just there so then you can ride him on the final turn that you plan on having, hopefully to push for game and win. But he is there just so then, again, you can hopefully win the game that way, since his ability to restand other Novel Grapplers when you drive check a Beast Deity is pretty strong, especially for this deck, since everything is, except for the 3 copies of Cat Butler, is a Beast Deity. Keep in mind it's grade 1 or higher, if I didn't mention that already. So if you get triggers besides a stand, unfortunately you're not standing other Beast Deities. All in all, this deck can be pretty fun, especially if you enjoy the playstyle of Beast Deities. So I'm just going to go over the positives of the deck real quickly here, which are: it stops the opponent from performing Legion. The early game rush with this deck can be very strong. The opponent's also not going to be planning for this deck more than likely, catches them off guard. It's also not hyper competitive, so it can be pretty fun. Again, it's kind of opinion based, but it can be pretty fun. Onto the negatives, since there are some, this deck dies horribly against any other deck that isn't full Legion. So Limit Break decks, maybe even Break Ride into Legion decks as well. I haven't checked that last one, but more than likely it would. This deck does hurt from being stuck at grade 2 for the entire game. That double drive check that you're not getting does hurt. Hopefully the triggers kind of balances it out, but on a bad day you might be still screwed. And unless you're on Damned Leo, the 10k vanilla grade 2, on Vanguard, if your opponent can make 19k columns against you, it hurts a lot. And you're probably going to be taking more damage than you would like to. Onto the cost of this deck. It's a very cheap deck, relatively. $45-ish, depending on various variables, where you're getting the cards from, the prices at the time that you're trying to look for them, since they might drop. I have all of the prices of the more expensive cards on the screen here. Like it says there as well, it's based on the prices from ideal808.com. So it might be a bit more, might be a bit less, depending on if you go to a different place or if you buy them in person. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, if you have any suggestions for the deck or suggestions for how I'm doing this deck profile, hopefully for future deck profiles as well, leave a comment below. I'd like to hear what you guys think, and until next time, see you guys later.